And here we are, my training week in review, episode 5, March 21st, 2022. Good evening. Thank you for joining me for episode 5 of my training week in review here on www.facebook.com/Bradley Tolpen. If this is your first time you've tuned into my program, I recommend you catch up with my previous episodes as soon as possible. To do that, visit my channel, www.youtube.com BST for better. Remember to subscribe. If an episode is not available, it's possible it's no longer in publication. After all, this is a scheduled live performance. By the way, a quick pitch. Remember, I need help. I've asked for someone, anyone, even you, Mr. Debo, to help set up a GoFundMe.com account to raise some money for my recent medical expenses and to start a campaign on my behalf for production expenses using, say, Kickstarter.com. I'm serious. I need money now. But no, that's not what this is about. This is my training week in review. So here we are, ready, get set, let's do it. And I welcome all of you. I can no longer see what's going on, but you can hopefully see me. Enough said already. Now, on to the program. Last week, I managed to train 5 times, and all of my training sessions were in gi. You just recently saw a gi on Bob, the black and gold gi, or black and yellow. That's how I actually got my nickname Bumblebee back in 2010. We don't use black gis anymore. You must wear a white gi or a blue gi in Gracie Hamata. So, every session was in gi. And remember to keep in mind, the gi provides certain grips that are not available while wearing street clothes. Very difficult to grab a collar on a t-shirt. It'll rip, it'll tear, but on a gi, it's solid. So some of the grips that you can get on a gi are not available in street clothes. That being recognized, I will remind all of you, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like all other martial arts in the following aspect. It's all about being hippie. I said being hippie, not being a hippie. Yeah, man, peace and love, flower power, no violence. Rules. BJJ is a martial art. By definition, we use military techniques. It's about military techniques. Check out the word martial. Not like U.S. Marshal, like martial, as in martial law, as in military law. Okay, so this episode is going to be about being hippie. And hip movements are very specific to martial arts. So I'm going to talk about learning to execute high performance, sometimes advanced jiu-jitsu techniques without the use of your hands. So you're not going to be able to get a collar grip or a sleeve grip or a pant grip. You're going to have to use what? No, not your legs, your hips. That's right. That doesn't mean use your legs, peeps. It means drive with your hips. And gotta be hippie. Get it? So, if I learned nothing else last week, I learned one thing. I learned one thing that's needed to execute an arm bar submission. Here's on. The one thing that you need to execute an arm bar submission is an opponent with a straight arm. Says a who? Says a JW. And remember, this be the man. JW. I don't know what that looks like on the camera. JW says, Jiu-Jitsu is not easy. He also reminds all of us not everybody is fit for every technique. Our bodies are different, our abilities are different, but we're able to accomplish at any certain level changes person to person to person. So you have to become comfortable with what works for you, or in my case, what works for me. So all of this was reiterated during a class about a high percentage submission while controlling an opponent's back. And that is the bow and arrow choke. You're going to die, or at least pass out, if you don't tap during this one hand only grip on the collar. So I have, remember, a gi over there, but the bow and arrow choke is executed by getting a grip on your opponent's collar, keeping your palm down towards their air as you keep the elbow up. So this gets on the windpipe and the carotid. And then the other hand is used to actually get, if I could show you this, the pat leg. So you're behind your opponent there and here, and you're sitting back on with back control, doing what is called a bow and arrow. And you're pulling your elbows together as you choke your opponent. Now, of course, someone is going to ask the perpetual question, what if? What if I did this? Because we were working on the bow and arrow choke right from the back control. We already had back control. We already had a seatbelt in over our Yuki, our training partner. So somebody's going to ask you, so what if they did this? For instance, you go for the choke and the guy brings his hand up trying to defend the choke. Well, we were taught how to handle the most likely responses. You can't cover everything that's going to happen in a situation. You know, that's why we train. We train to handle the most likely responses that an opponent, an attacker, or somebody that your opponent is in a sports competition, whatever the situation, you're training and you're drilling so that you can handle almost anything that comes at you without having to fetch that from your brain. It's going to become a regular response. So if somebody were to try to put their hand up to keep from getting that first collar choke in, grabbing that collar, we were taught to go ahead and take our leg, rather than placing it in as hooks in the seated back control, take our leg, throw it up over the arm, trap the arm with our leg. So now we have an arm trapped with our leg. We have the same choke on our opponent, and we still have the bow and arrow, and all you gotta do is choke. Now, there was another question about what if we couldn't get that back control where we could get the everything we needed. So we learned how to put our knee in the back. Instead of having this hook in, we took the hook out, we placed the knee behind the neck, up from the spine, and we still were able to execute the choke. So I just want to let you know that I drilled with a guy named Zach. I drilled with a lot of people over the course of the last 5 training sessions. And I want to let you know that my training partners come from all walks of life. They do different type of things. Some of them are students. Some of them have already had careers. Some of them are police officers. Some of them are civil engineers. It doesn't matter what we do outside of the gym. When we come inside the gym, we are doing what? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I trained with Zach, and Zach was a great drilling partner, and we even rolled afterwards. Now, he wears a white belt with a stripe. What do I wear? Well, it's easy. I wear a white belt. Why do I wear a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because I have never been promoted by a qualified instructor. I'm okay with that. So technically, Zach outranks me as a higher belt rank than I do. No big deal. Remember, we leave our egos outside the gym door. So Zach and I drilled, trapping the arm, attempt to defend the collar grip when going to around the other side, all those things. And JW finally says, some responses are just going to get you killed faster. And nobody's dying in training, we hope. You know, remember to tap. Okay. So, if you're getting the picture I'm painting, and I'm kind of painting a violent choking situation, bow and arrow choke, you know I'm talking offense. I'm talking about choking my partner and being choked by my partner. We typically go for the carotid artery, cutting the blood flow off to the brain, and then if they tap before they pass out, we let them back up, and of course, no harm, no foul. Sometimes we're on the windpipe, cutting the airflow to the lungs. It's a different situation, but still, as long as they tap before they pass out, no harm, no foul. Remember to tap. I'm talking offense, and of course that means allowing my partner to choke me as well. It's all about JW's ABC statement. Always be choking. It's what we do. It's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But it's not the only way to submit a partner. So, like I said, after our drills, I rolled with Zach. It was a great roll. Yeah, we're both, wearing a white belt. It doesn't matter with the belt. It turned into a 6-minute stalemate. There was no submission after 6 minutes of rolling. I don't know how it would have been scored. I felt like I did a good job controlling my positions, and although I didn't dominate 100% of the time, like I said, it was a good roll. I liked it. Now, day two of week 5. Yeah, that was just day 1. Bow and arrow choke from the back and variations to get there. It was taught, but day 2 of week 5 was taught by my friend. Yeah, I have friends. And some of them are out there right now watching me, and I appreciate you all. My friend, Professor Tim Condren. Now, I'm going to talk about Tim for just a moment. And as I do, I'm lifting this up here. And I want to let you know that Tim Condren also was one of the people that I met, like many of the advanced students at the gym, back in 2010. See, in 2010, that was the year we all did the Trading Punches benefit. And during the Trading Punches charity matches, Tim Condren also won his fight. But like me, and let's see if we can see where Tim was on the thing, because this is a piece that I did for my wall here. Let's see if we can find Professor Tim Condren's fight. Oh, there he is. IBEW Local 1. He was 1, 2, 3, 4. He was the 5th fight of the night, it looks like. So the 5th fight of the night was Tim Condren. And we can, as you can see, the matches raised for the charity $2,387. And even at that time, I went ahead and I credited, it was called Gracie back then, and some of the other things that I had done. So, as I mentioned that, I am going to let you know that this is my script. I actually have a script tonight, like everything. And so, there we were doing the Trading Punches. And not only did we do the Trading Punches together, Tim went on, oh, look at that. Tim went on to never fight in the cage again either. I didn't fight in the cage again. He didn't fight in the cage again. But we both continued our lives, and he continued. until he earned his black belt in the year 2017 from none other than J.W. Wright. So now my friend Tim Condren is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I'm learning from him. I'm going to see if I can get this here. Can everybody see this now? You can see Bob over there. You can see the floor. So one of the things Tim likes to do, I'm going to come over here. We now have a reverse angle. Now, one of the things Tim likes us to do, especially during our opening classes, by the way, this is a collar, and I was talking about the bow and arrow. I can't really show you a bow and arrow on Bob because Bob has a gi on, but even if I were able to come up here, get the collar grip, and get it in tight like this, I don't have a pant. There's no pants leg here, so that it doesn't really matter where my feet are. I have no pants leg to do a bow and arrow on Bob. But like I said, grips are different when it comes to wearing a gi and not wearing a gi. And I learned why in competition, the gi, you can hold the gi sleeve like this, but it's illegal to actually put your fingers on the inside. And one of my training partners told me, well, you know, if they're on the inside and it pulls away, your fingers get broke. Not very good. You don't really want your fingers broke while training. So Tim started the classes with shrimp drills. So shrimp drills are, as you know, down on the floor kind of things. And I'm just going to show you one. It's going to be one I've been working on a lot. It's the question mark shrimp drill. You know, you're down on your side. You're here in your shrimping position. The question mark shrimp drill. You're here. The leg comes up, and as it comes down and your body comes up, you move your shoulder back, and then this plants, and you come back. We'll try that again. You come up. You're here. Come up. Shoulder back. Up, and there. One more time, everybody. Up, shoulder back, plant, and slide. That's called a question mark shrimp. And we do lots of shrimp drills. And tonight, here we are on Monday night. I didn't know what I was going to talk about come Monday night, but one of the things that we were working on this evening was the chair move. I'm not very good at it. It's not as much core as I thought it was. It's a necessity. And as JW put it tonight, that the thing about learning to do this drill is that learning to keep your when you move your legs, you're not, as you're rocking, you're always keeping your knees in. So as you come here, 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 this is when you move your shoulder and you come here, 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 shoulder down and come here, 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 shoulder, come, and here, here, shoulder, come. And you say, what's so important about learning to do the chair? Well, the way it was explained to us, if you don't do the chair right, and it's used in 50 different techniques, say, like the one we were doing tonight, we were doing these great sweeps. We were starting in basically a chair position. Our partner was standing. We were down in kind of a chair position with our feet on his knees. And so here I am, my feet on my knees. I'm not using my hands here. I'm using my feet. So I'm kicking back. And if I don't, if I extend out like this, I leave room for my opponent to pass. But if I keep my leg in as I come up, and that way when I lock in here with this kind of a ear against the guy's leg, if you can imagine, then as I look down and I post and I have the foot here, all I have to do is I come down here, I kick out the foot, and suddenly I'm able to gain mount. And we did a couple of different techniques, but all based on that kind of chair movement where we keep our knees close to our bodies. However, that's not the only thing we were learning back on day 2 of my classes. So those were some shrimp. I showed you some shrimp, the question mark shrimp that we did. We did some other shrimps with Tim, and you know, we shrimp. Shrimping is important, Baba. You know, shrimp is what shrimp does. I just wanted to throw that in there. So the class was again about offense. This time we did not start from back control. We started from a full guard around our yuki from the bottom position. So we're down on the ground, back on the ground, legs up around our yuki. Our yuki's on his knees, and we learn to execute an arm drag. And this arm drag can lead to what? Back control. And if you can get back control, how can you submit your partner? Lots of different ways. But what's that high percentage way? That high percentage way is that one hand on the collar, the bow and arrow choke. Now, of course, the arm drag might also lead to getting mount. Now, if you get mount, you got a whole different ballpark. So how do we know whether we're going to end up from our full guard doing an arm drag, gaining the back, or ending up in mount or some other position? Well, it comes down to, depends on what your opponent does. You know, that makes sense, right? How your opponent responds to your movements is going to make a difference where you can lead them. But like any good chess player, the more moves that you know that can isolate the number of moves your opponent can make, and then you know the likelihood of what your opponent will do, you get a feel for doing which way them hips are gonna move. And remember how we're being hippie, we'll know whether or not we're gonna take that arm drag and get the back, or whether or not we're going to have to change from where we're at and then maybe get a mount. Now, it's our job to limit those choices, and JW returned to teaching the next day. Bear in mind, as I finish with my friend Professor Tim Condren's class, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, sports Jiu-Jitsu, is not a choreographed sport. It's not wrestling at the chase, folks. When people do BJJ and they're rolling, whether in competition or for a 6-minute roll in class, it's not choreographed. You don't know what each other's going to do. You have to roll with it. You have to see how it goes, which is why training is important. And if you think about it, life itself isn't choreographed. Got to go with the flow, and you learn that on the roll. So like I said, JW returned to my 3rd day of training last week, and yep, I was still learning offense. And think about it, being offensive is essential to winning a war. And so, with that in mind, I'm going to come back over here for just a second, and I'm going to move our camera one more time right back up here so that you can see some things. So far so good, and I am so glad you're still with me. I'm going to come right over here, and as you can see, this is our fearless leader. You may have seen this picture before. That is JW, and that's actually Hoyler Gracie. That's the man himself, Hoyler Gracie, and that was during an instructor's class. And as you can see, Master Hoyler Gracie is on JW's back. Well, we drilled again, starting on the bottom, and this time, from the full guard. I'm just going to set this back here for a moment, reset my shot. Thank you, Don, for sticking with me. I really do appreciate you, sir, and I hope you share the word and maybe make a comment or two as, oh, I'm putting my finger over the camera lens. That never helps, does it? So here we go. We'll get you back up and running here. We're just going to do this a second. I don't have a cameraman. You want to come out and do that for me, Don? Yeah, I'm half serious. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, I'm going to go sit down. I appreciate everybody sticking with me. So, we drilled again, starting in the bottom position. And it's pretty easy to understand the bottom position from the top position. And this time we locked in our full guard. And the idea from this, with JW on day 3 of my training, was to go from the full guard and move it up to high guard. Get our legs all the way up into high guard. And to do this, what did we need to do? How many steps was it going to take? And we learned all the steps. And during the equation, we were told, don't worry about our hands. It's like, huh? Well, you got to learn to do what? Hippie. You got to be hippie. So even though we're, going up for the high back, the high guard, in order to accomplish that climb up from the bottom, taking the leg off of the part and putting the foot on the ground and coming up onto the knee and throwing it up so that your knee comes up against the guy's face. It's a knee to the face. We're wrestling, people, and we're putting our knee up against the guy's head. It's beautiful. We're not kneeing them in the head, but you have to get the knee in the head so that as the other leg comes up and you're squeezing your thighs together. You're squeezing, the knee side with the foot here and the other side here. We're trying to get that high guard accomplished so that this foot can shoot out and come down on the guy's back, and the other leg can then come around and you get that high guard over the guy's back. And I just couldn't do it. I'm working with Kenny, and Kenny's a pretty big guy. Really cool guy. Worked with him a couple times last week, blue belt. And so I'm working with Kenny, and I'm having some difficulty throwing up my high guard. So JW comes over to correct my hip movements, because it's all about hip goes this way, and then the hip goes that way, and the hip goes this way. So the first thing JW says to me, he says, hey, man, as he takes Kenny into his guard, Kenny kneels down, gets into JW's guard. He says, hey, your legs aren't any shorter than mine. That's the truth. They're not. JW just rotates those hips. He gets that knee up against the guy's head, shoots that leg back out, turns his hip the other direction, puts that heel down on Kenny's spine, rotates back again, locks in the high guard. That simple. All with knee movements. Not knee movements, hip movements. Hip, hip, hooray. Had a great time training with him. Now that I finally got the feel and I was able to accomplish the high guard, both my legs up on my opponent, and I've got it there, JW says, now it's time for the bread and butter of jiu-jitsu. Yeah, we talked about ABC, always be choking, but the bread and butter of jiu-jitsu is not always be choking. It's one, armbar. If you learn nothing else tonight from my training week in review, the one thing you need to execute a successful armbar submission is an opponent with a straight arm. If you learn nothing else tonight from me, bread and butter of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, an armbar, a triangle, and an omoplata. Those are like the major 3 things that you're supposed to learn to do for submissions, right? And the omoplata, if you remember correctly, episode 2 of my training week in review, Professor Lampy taught an omoplata submission. And if you look at the cut version, I added some really great pieces that illustrate how to get the omoplata locked in and how to put your opponent's hand in your pocket so that that's a shoulder lock. Arm bar is an arm lock, triangle is a choke, and a omoplata is a shoulder lock. And speaking of my friend, once again, this guy, I hope you can see this guy, that's Professor Phil Lampy. Also met him back in 2010. Interviewed him. If you watched one of my promos when he was winning a gold and silver in gi and no gi back in 2011. We both competed in Wright City at the interstate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Championships, which have just grown huge by now. So anyway, now Professor Lampy, Phil, not only is a co-owner and partner in Gracie Yamato Wentzville, he's a professor. So one of my friends who's, once again, like Tim, has been following me on Facebook for 10 years, watching me grow as a performer and things that I do as an actor and writer. And I've watched them grow as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists and martial artists and professors. So I told Professor Lampy, I really enjoy his classes. And I meant it. See, he presents his lessons with a flavor that is unique and has a unique laugh at sense of humor. Yeah, he points out that that's one of the benefits for him as a BJJ instructor. He says, I get to try out new material. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a great teacher. And during our training session, I'm working with Kenny again. Yeah, he's asking us, he's going, are you really submitting your opponent? Or is your partner like, I wouldn't tap to that shit? Yeah, I just said that. And I'm like, I think in my case it's the latter. I think my training partner's like, I ain't tapping. You didn't lock in that, and we were doing escapes from half guard. Which in order to escape from half guard, you have to free the knee. And then once you get the knee free, there's all sorts of other things you can do, like get back control. And if you get back control, what can you end up with? You can end up with that bow and arrow, high percentage submission, or might end up with side control. So you get out of half guard, you get side control. Maybe you can lock in a Kimura. We hadn't talked about Kimuras this evening, did we? Another way to submit an opponent, a Kimura. And I think in one of my early episodes, might have been episode 2 live, I talked about a Kimura and an Americana, and I think I had them backwards. I tend to confuse the position. Both are shoulder locks, wrist shoulder locks, and using a key grip. And learning, once you have your grip on your opponent, you no longer have to use your thumb. As a matter of fact, it just gets in your way. So we're learning how to do, once you have control, you don't need to make a C grip. It's just a grip like this. Something to think about. So he's asking, would your opponent submit? And I'm like, nah. But Kenny corrected it, helped correct my position, so that as I did my escape from his half guard and was able to take his back or able to come around and get a Kimura or an armbar. For instance, to get the armbar, I had to get the, our heads down in the arm, and we're trying to get the armbar, and I didn't quite have my arm under the right, what's it called? I want to say focal point, but it's It's where the lever is on fulcrum, I think it's fulcrum. I didn't quite have the right fulcrum point on my armbar. So I got it corrected with the help of my training partner, the guy I'm drilling with. The guy I'm putting in armbar, putting the armbar on, he's corrected, and I'm like, yeah, now he's really tapping to that. Yeah, I'm submitting him now in training, in drilling. So that was pretty cool. And of course, freeing the knee, like I said, ends up with side control or mount, and providing the opportunities to get that arm bar or Kimura, depending on the situation. And then, of course, Lampy teaches us this real explosive way to get out. We're in the half guard, and he's like, just roll out. Surprise the heck out of your opponent. So we're doing this big flying roll out. It's fun. It's exciting. It's explosive. You do the roll out. You get the back. You get the bow and arrow. You learn to kind of do the Three Stooges move, or come around and just keep up with it. It was just fun. Just fun. Phil Lampy's classes are fun. So he adds a little bit of flavor. And Phil is one of those guys who actually did wrestle one time. He did a professional wrestling bout. It's amazing. Good guy. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this evening. I already talked about tonight's class. We've had about 35 minutes this evening together during this Facebook Live, my Training Week in Review, Episode 5. And I hope you stuck around for it. I know Don Debo was with me a long time. If you're still there, big shout out to Don. Good guy, and we appreciate you tuning in. Spread the word. Also let them know that sometimes this show probably won't make it, but earlier shows made it onto my YouTube channel, youtube.com, BST for better. Remember to subscribe. That helps. The more subscribers you have can lead to better opportunities online. And so is there anything else I want to share? Well, just what I said early on at the beginning. Right now, I'm fortunate that I'm not one of the 10 million displaced individuals in the Ukrainian-Russian war. Everybody give a prayer out for them. It's sad. They're living in bunkers and shelters. Some have a week's worth of food. 3.5 million refugees trying to find new homes. We are honestly blessed, and I am honestly blessed to be able to sit here in my basement and talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But right now, I'm not earning very much money in my profession, and I really do need some financial assistance. So if you have that opportunity to help me out by setting up a GoFundMe, I spent $7,000 getting a tooth replaced. It's honest medical expenses, and I have my regular bills, and more importantly, I want to make these productions better, and I just don't have and haven't had for the last decade the equipment or the opportunities to really get what I need for the productions. So I'd like to pay the writer, the performer, get a camera person, new editing system. I think I mentioned in one of my earlier episodes, how about a training dummy so I can show some of the things I'm talking about. Just production expenses, honest, real world Kickstarter campaign stuff. I'm not asking for anything that won't be used as I mentioned it. So that's it. We're say a prayer for the Ukrainians. They're at war. They're fighting to the death in a real world situation. Guns a-blazing, bazookas and tanks and air raids and homelessness. I know. Talking martial arts. Peace and love.